The Super Bowl is absolutely the most exciting part of the football season. But let's be real for a moment. There are a number of teams and team matchups that if you saw that they were the ones playing, might make you not tune in and just sort of keep track of the score online.
It'll be the AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs taking on the champions from the NFC, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The Super Bowl is the biggest sporting event every year, but a bad matchup could easily ruin everything. Let us cross our fingers together and hope we don't see any of these 10 Super Bowl matchups. Dallas Cowboys versus New England Patriots. Do we really need to explain this one? These are by far the two most hated teams in the NFL, or at least the two most despised of the past 20-something years. It feels like the Patriots aren't hated as much with Tom Brady gone and the reign of terror finally over, at least for now. But who outside of New England wants to see the 6-time Super Bowl champs in another Super Bowl? And then the Cowboys. Just don't get us started. Every year since their last Super Bowl season, which was in 1995 by the way, we've heard from Cowboys Nation how it's always their year. Well, newsflash, it hasn't been their year for nearly 30 years now. Dallas versus New England would be an enticing matchup on paper. Their Week 6 showdown last season was a mega thriller, but most non-Cowboys and non-Pats fans surely wouldn't want anything to do with this matchup. The Pats have 6 titles and the Cowboys have 5 of their own. It's not like either franchise needs another right now. Kansas City Chiefs versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. These two teams met in Super Bowl 55, and who can forget Tony Romo comparing Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes to Michael Jordan versus LeBron James.
LeBron James, Michael Jordan, they're playing for the Super Bowl, generation against generation. Oh, this is huge.
Well, let's just say that may have been the most disappointing Super Bowl of all time, at least in terms of game quality. In case you forgot, Patrick Mahomes was playing behind an O-line full of backups and had approximately 0 seconds to throw on most of his snaps. The Chiefs' defense kept taking careless penalties, and when all was said and done, the Bucs cruised to a 31-9 victory. Surely a rematch would be better this time around, right? The Chiefs have since rebuilt their defense and their O-line, and 2022 could very well be Tom Brady's final season. So, who wouldn't want to see him versus Mahomes in the GOAT's farewell game? Well, honestly, a lot of us get pretty tired of the non-stop Mahomes and Brady media coverage. Did you know there are other great NFL players who deserve some recognition and a Super Bowl ring for once? Plus, it's not like either of these franchises is starving for another title. They make up 2 of the last 3 Super Bowl winners. Wouldn't it be kind of nice to see somebody else win it all for once? And if you're in the crowd of never getting enough of Mahomes versus Brady, just sit back and enjoy their Week 4 regular season showdown. Los Angeles Chargers versus Los Angeles Rams. Despite all of the star power on both rosters, football in Los Angeles just hasn't fully taken off the way that Stan Kroenke and Dean Spanos probably had envisioned. LA is a huge sports city, no doubt, but there's a reason the Raiders and Rams left La La Land some decades ago. Football just doesn't appeal to Los Angeles the same way basketball and baseball do. The Rams finally garnered some love throughout 2021 because, well, they won Super Bowl 56. The Chargers haven't really developed much of a fan base in LA, but that'll likely change if they emerge as a contender. Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams versus Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Allen Robinson does seem enticing on paper, and then you throw in the defensive stars like Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey, and, well, that matchup sounds pretty cool. But really, who wants a Chargers versus Rams Super Bowl? 2 fair-weather bandwagon fan bases who don't really care about football all that much, and it's not really fun for the league and the residents outside of California if the Super Bowl is a matchup between 2 teams in the same market. The Rams just won the Super Bowl. If they're to get back to the big game, let it be against someone outside of the LA market. And if it's the Chargers who win the AFC, let it be against a team that isn't coming off a Super Bowl winning season. New York Giants versus New York Jets. Yeah, this is one of the most unlikely potential Super Bowl matchups of them all, but let's put it on the list anyway because no one wants an all-New York Super Bowl. Now, unlike the Rams and Chargers, the G-Men and Gang Green have extremely passionate and loyal fan bases. Even though these 2 clubs have been among the worst in football since 2012, the love these fans have for their team hasn't at all waned. But nobody needs a Super Bowl showdown between the Jets and Giants. Any New York sports team that goes on a run one gets enough media coverage and attention as is. We don't need the focus for 2 weeks to be based entirely on New York teams. Plus, even if the Jets and Giants magically reach the Super Bowl, do you really think that game would be that exciting? Daniel Jones is a bottom-tier quarterback. Zach Wilson just isn't there yet, and something tells us that this game would be held to under 30 total points scored. Yeah, no thanks. We would way prefer a Mets-Yankees World Series or an Islanders versus Rangers playoff series instead. New Orleans Saints versus Pittsburgh Steelers. This potential matchup has nothing to do with the fan bases or the organizations as a whole. It's simply the fact that we can't envision a very thrilling Super Bowl game whatsoever between these two clubs. Both the Saints and Steelers have prolific defenses from top to bottom. Sure, they both have exciting skill position guys on offense. For New Orleans, they have Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave. And for the Steelers, it's Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth, and George Pickens. So why does NOLA versus Pitt make this list? We're just betting too much on the defenses to dominate this one. Jameis Winston would struggle against that mighty Pittsburgh pass rush, especially with Terron Armstead no longer on the offensive line. And on the flip side, we wouldn't trust Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett to have a field day against Dennis Allen's defense. No, not behind that leaky Pittsburgh O-line. This just feels like a defensive mistake-filled game. Probably a lot of holding penalties and defensive PIs with the way that these two clubs play. And though Harris and Kamara are among the NFL's most prolific running backs, nobody wants a Super Bowl game that is dominated more by the rushers than the passers. Cleveland Browns versus Washington Commanders. Lots of reasons to want to avoid this matchup. To us, the most obvious is that a Browns-Commanders Super Bowl guarantees that either Jimmy Haslam or Dan Snyder hoist the Lombardi Trophy. These two owners have left very bad marks on their respective franchises. It is shameful that Snyder is still an owner when the only person involved with the team who thinks Snyder is doing a good job is himself. On a less relevant note, the Browns and the Commanders feature some of the NFL's ugliest jerseys. Yeah, no thanks to this one. Sorry, Cleveland, we know you've been heartbroken for years, and sorry, Washington, we know things have sucked with Snyder in charge. But we cannot, in good conscience, be okay with the idea of either owner holding the Lombardi Trophy. Arizona Cardinals versus Los Angeles Chargers. The Cardinals and Chargers are part of the never won the Super Bowl club. Unlike the Bolts, however, Arizona has come awfully close to winning it all. They lost a heartbreaker to the Steelers in Super Bowl 42, whereas the Chargers were no match for the San Francisco 49ers in their lone Super Bowl appearance, which was way back in the 1994 season. These two clubs feature two of the game's most explosive quarterbacks in Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert. Throw in the great offensive weapons in DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Zach Ertz, Rondale Moore, and James Conner of Arizona, and Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler of LA? And hey, what is not to like here? Well, come on, isn't it obvious? These are two of the most snake-bitten franchises in sports, and they have a terrible habit of blowing big games or simply not showing up when it matters most. Don't you get the feeling that one of these teams would give away the Super Bowl the way the Seahawks did to the Patriots in Super Bowl 49? Well, so do we. It's more fun when the Super Bowl is actually earned. And this would likely just be a game that comes down to which team makes the worst mistake at the worst possible time.
Get ready, everybody. He's about to do something stupid.
Rams pressure is picked up. Kyler! Did he get rid of it? It's intercepted!
Indianapolis Colts versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. These two teams met in Indianapolis last season, with Leonard Fournette's 4 total touchdowns powering Tampa Bay to a 38-31 victory. Exciting game, right? I mean, kind of, if you can look past the 110 yards of penalties, 5 sacks, and 7 turnovers. Yeah, that is absolutely not something we need to see. Thank you very much. To us, that's a sloppy, mistake-filled game that the Bucs were lucky to come out on top of. Secondly, the Colts now have Matt Ryan in the fold. And with all due respect to Matty Ice, we simply don't want more 28-3 jokes. They're on different teams now, so the 28-3 jokes don't really have that same luster. But don't think that'll stop the media from constantly bringing him up. Also, how many non-Brady fans actually want to see him win an 8th Super Bowl? And who outside the small Indianapolis market cares to see the Colts in the Super Bowl? Honestly, we're not down for another turnover penalty-happy game between two overly physical teams that would probably rely mostly on their running games to win. Yeah, no thanks. Give us something else, please. Cleveland Browns versus Green Bay Packers. For obvious reasons, Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers might be the two most hated men in football right now. Watson's off-the-field stuff simply speaks for itself, and Rodgers is picking unnecessary fights with the fans and media. Not to mention, he threw a temper tantrum last year, sought a trade from Green Bay, and then decided to come back. Rodgers likes to stir the pot just for the sake of it, so don't worry, Chicago Bears fans, you're not the only one who dislike him. And Watson and Haslam winning a Super Bowl after everything that has transpired? No thanks. Let's be honest, the Browns never go far, and the Packers always find a way to choke in January. So we probably shouldn't worry about this matchup, but we had to include it anyways, just in case. The Cincinnati Bengals versus Los Angeles Rams. Don't get us wrong, the Bengals and Rams was a thriller for the ages that came down to the wire, and it's hard not to be happy for the winner. Either way that it was, be it the young Cinderella Bengals who came out of literally nowhere, or the veteran Rams squad that deserved a ring once and for all. But folks, we just got this matchup last season. It is way too soon for a Super Bowl rematch. Come on, let's give it a year. Let's see somebody else in the big game. Maybe Super Bowl 58 or Super Bowl 59 between these two would be kinda cool. But the Bengals have a wide open championship window, and the Rams should be in contention for a few more years. There is plenty of time for these two franchises to square off again. We don't need it to be this year. And I'm sure the fans of the 30 other NFL teams would probably agree with us on this one. But which other Super Bowl 57 matchups are you hoping to avoid seeing this year? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.